Hello and welcome everyone to another week of the Confidence Connection show where we share stories of confidence from all around the globe. I'm so excited for today's show. I'm talking to the lovely Bracha and Susan, and this is going to make for such an interesting show because we're working with totally different ends of the spectrum this week. Bracha is the author of children's books and Susan runs an online sex shop. So this is going to be a really interesting interview. I can't wait for you all to see how we can build confidence in totally different ways this week. So first of all, I have Bracha with me. So she is, like I said, is a Harvard-educated author of over 40 children's books, and she's also written a candid memoir for adults about overcoming food addictions joyfully and on becoming an Orthodox Jew. So you can find all of her books on her Amazon author page, which will be shared in the comments attached to this video. But I thank you so much for being here and joining us all the way from, we'd say, Maryland in America. So it's the afternoon for you, which is awesome. Nice, good time for you. Do you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and your background?
Okay, let's see. Well, I love writing children's books. It comes naturally to me. In many ways, I haven't totally grown up. I mean, I'm still a child in the sense of that I have a sense of wonder about the world and a joy. And I love to share that. I can still get into the head of a child because part of me is still that way. And so the kind of books I write are different because they're all, in a way, spiritual books. They're books to help children's souls to shine. That's my goal in the world, to get souls shining as early as possible in life. Yeah.
I love that. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. And I love that you still got that childlike manner too, which is cool. My partner's a bit like that. And many a times I've told him you need to get into writing children's books because your imagination is just off the chart. And so if he ever does that, maybe I'll have to get some tips off you, but that's great.
And like
I'll
you said,
tell you write spiritual books and you wish that.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that people, they walk around with books inside of them. I say they walk around with children's books inside for 20 years and 20 minutes because they don't write it down for 20 years, and then it just takes 20 minutes to just get that first draft on paper. So go for it. Yes.
Yeah, that's so true. A lot easier than trying to write a draft of a novel, I'm sure.
Yes.
And so as a child, you wish that you had spiritual books like what you were writing that answer, these big questions that people have in just with little words in a short space of time. So, creating books like that take big ideas and compact them is no easy feat. So how do you do that? And how do you decide which life lessons you want to teach in each of your books?
It's a wonderful question. First of all, ideas come to me kind of when I wake up in the morning. They drop into my head. I have like a pad next to my bed where I scribble it really quick before it goes away. And I just write about things that I feel have to be written, like The Invisible Book. The Invisible Book is about all these things we believe in. Like we let go of a pen and it drops. There's invisible gravity and a magnet. It picks up a paperclip. Why? There's invisible electromagnetism. We believe in all these things. We believe in feelings. We believe in thoughts. We believe in time. And it's all invisible. So it's not so hard to believe that we too are invisible. Our essence is invisible. We are spiritual beings housed in physical bodies. So that's what I'm teaching children. They may have never heard that, but if they learn that early on, which I didn't, their whole lives will be different. Understanding that they're spiritual beings that need spiritual nourishment to thrive in life. Yep. So that's one example. I have many examples, like Hashem's Candy Store is about how amazing the fruit and vegetables are. Like we don't realize like how amazing an orange is. An orange keeps the juiciness inside of the peel for months and months. and it becomes bright and beautiful when it's ripe. That's when they call to us. It's like it's supposed to be the heightened pleasurable experience, because when it's most ripe, it becomes the most beautiful. And it smells beautiful, it tastes wonderful. All these natural foods were designed to be delicious and nutritious, as opposed to the stuff
Yeah.
made by like um, big food industry, which is delicious but addictive. It's not designed to be nutritious as the natural things are. So these are things I put
Yeah.
in my
Wow. That's
children's
so
books. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you've got such a way with words. I can see I can see it already just as you speak that you have such a great way of describing things, which is beautiful. You've kind of explained a bit of this already, but what is your goal with these books? What sort of children do you hope to see out in the world? What do you hope that the children who read your books, what sort of people are they going to become?
Exactly. My goal is there's a saying in the Talmud, if a person learns when he's a child, what is it like? It's like ink written on fresh paper. It sinks in and it makes an impression. So if you can give children skills for joy from the very beginning in life, then they can live joyful lives and not go through a lot of stuff that's unnecessary. But I have books also even about sexual abuse, prevention of sexual abuse, because again, this helps the children to shine if they don't go through a lot of trauma, which puts garbage on top of a soul. Then they are free to shine. In order for a soul to shine, you have to nourish the soul, and you also have to get the garbage off that's on top of it that prevents it from shining. It's a so a, a number of my books, like prevention of abuse, let's swim safely. If we don't keep our bodies healthy, then we don't have souls to shine. And the more we can keep our bodies healthy, the more good we can do in this world, and hopefully the longer we can live doing good things. So it's really important to teach children. Like my newest book is Let's Stay Healthy. It explains to children why eating healthy is so good for the body, and things like exercise, how we were designed to move. Like I really explain how these things work and how junk food actually drains the body of nutrients. And these are things that have never been explained to children. So it's about letting your soul shine through having a healthy body and also nourishing your hungry soul. Yeah.
I love that. That's so great. So much education within these great books, which is so cool. And so you went to Harvard, but you say you're not the typical Harvard graduate because you don't write complex intellectual works like everyone else did. Do you feel pressure that you should be doing that? And if so, how do you deal with it?
I can't. It's just not me. My personality is to write things as simply as possible and in as joyful way as possible. I feel the world needs more joy, almost more than anything. That's what's needed. So that's what I'm trying to spread. And like if you think about Einstein, the greatest genius, what he did was simplify things. That's what we got to do. He simplified, that all energy is interrelated. And in a sense, that's what I'm showing also in my books. We're all connected to source. We're all connected to each other, and bringing out these connections so that we can be filled with more gratitude in life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And so you've talked a lot about food and health, and you also have a memoir on your life. And part of that is overcoming food addiction. So do you want to tell us a bit about that journey for you and how you hope to help others overcome their food addictions through your writing?
Yeah, even I think Wayne Dyer spoke about it too, that that there's a spiritual source to every illness. And for my book, my memoir is really, it's kind of a documentary. I don't like to write long things, as you know, so it's a compilation of my diaries, my journals, my letters, I put it all together. I filled in the missing pieces, and you see me developing the food addictions and then healing from the food addictions. And it's all about, it's the discovery. At the end of the book, I actually discover how was I able to heal from the food addictions by finally finding what nourishes my soul. What does one thing have to do with the other? So that's the like epiphany that I come to at the end of the book, is recognizing that's why we develop addictions, because it's our souls that are hungry. Why do we overeat? We want the pleasure to keep lasting. Like we experience this piece of chocolate and we want it to just go on, so we just eat more and more. It's not the junk food, it's overeating the junk food. So basically, if we want a pleasure that's lasting, then we have to find lasting pleasure in life. And that's what I finally found through spiritual nourishment. And what I learned about the pleasure ladder is the physical pleasures are the lowest level of pleasure. And these 5 levels on the pleasure ladder, they correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. So there's all the natural physical pleasures, which are food, it's exercise, dance, music, nature. All these things are meant to give us pleasure and uplift our soul at the same time with gratitude. And then we really don't overeat. When we feel gratitude, then we're not in a place of overeating. And when we're eating natural foods, we don't feel like overeating. It's the addictive foods that get us overeating. So it's the physical pleasures, and the next level up is love, which is appreciating someone else. What do you value about somebody else? When the minute you think about that, it uplifts your soul. And above that is meaning, doing more meaningful things in your life. Above that is creativity. And the highest level of pleasure is transcendence, overcoming our limitations, which is our addictions, overcoming our addictions, and seeing how we're all connected, and we're all connected to source. And that fills us with the greatest gratitude, like under a starry, starry sky, when we recognize that we're all a part of the universe. And so each level up, when we recognize there's an abundance of pleasure in the world, then we don't get stuck on just eating the bag of potato chips. We start to recognize, oh, it's my soul that's hungry. I'll bring in other greater pleasures. So the way to overcome addictions is not by restricting, it's by bringing even more pleasure into your life.
Wow. That was such a beautiful explanation. I love what you said about it's your soul that's hungry. That's such a good way of putting it. And that you're right, you should, rather than restricting, just add in more other good things. That's so
Bring
awesome.
it on. Yes.
Yeah. So just quickly, what's been the biggest lesson that you've had to overcome through your journey in your career and life?
Yes. I mean, although I had a loving childhood, there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And that's the recognition that I was a spiritual being. I wasn't brought up with a spiritual background, and I had to search for it. And when I found it, that changed my life. So that's a lesson for life for me, to recognize that we're spiritual beings going through a temporary human experience here in our temporary bodies.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and what you're all about. So we'll talk to Susan now, and then I'll bring you back on the end to talk a bit more about confidence and how you help children build their confidence. So thank you, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
So now we have Susan, and Susan's passion and motivation is to create an online sexual store, which was born from personal experience. Now in her 50s, Susan discovered that as her hair turned grey, she started using a walking stick. Her presence in the world seemed to be fading. She felt invisible at the checkout, invisible in the media, and certainly invisible in the realm of online adult stores. It really pissed her off, so she decided to change the status quo, one orgasm at a time. I can't wait to talk to you about your interesting story, Susan. So do you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. Hi, Bronte. Thanks very much for having me here this morning. Just listening to Bracha was fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and I could detect many parallels between talking about what comes naturally. And for me, I've always been very comfortable talking about sex and sexuality, and actually didn't actually have an intention to open a business. It was a friend of mine who told me about an online party store that was up for sale, and I had a look at it, and I found the branding was just very tacky, and there was no class, and I knew I could do something better, and it certainly didn't appeal to me in terms of the way it was presented, and they treated sex as a joke, and to me, sex and sexuality, obviously there's many different layers to that, and people perceive sex in different ways. But for me, it's quite a spiritual thing. It didn't used to be. As a younger person, one night stands, exploring, things like that. And I'm still exploring, but I didn't tap into that connection to my spirit. And that didn't happen for me until I was in my 40s. So, cut a long story short, it was basically that was a bit of the motivation. I could do something better and bring something to the world that focused on people over 50, because, as you said in my introduction, I did feel incredibly invisible, that society doesn't seem to look at older people as being sexual beings, and your sexuality is with you until the day you die. And sex really is as natural as the air we breathe, and yet we choke on it. So I'm trying to break down taboos in conversations around that, and those other taboos as well, about talking about menopause, having sex while you're going through cancer. And I also talk a lot about my own mental health. I live with anxiety and depression, and how my sexuality has helped me overcome some of those difficulties in life.
Wow, that's a lot. That's so cool. I love that you are, you can openly talk about it, because it is something that people struggle to talk openly about. So it's great that you can. And you're so right about how so many of these stores are, I see them too as being tacky and making a joke out of sex and sexuality. And, it's kind of gives you that image of the typical hen's party was, just tacky.
Yeah,
And I love that you were trying to give it some class, and there
yeah,
are, I've seen some more brands appearing online that do have a bit more class to them than just penises everywhere.
yeah, exactly.
There's a really tacky
have a, I have a mission. I don't have any images directly in my web store. Actually, there might be one. I might be making a lie of myself. There's nothing wrong with looking at a model of a genital, but some of
Yeah,
the products that are out there on the market really dehumanize women. And I
yeah,
won't go into them in detail, but basically, when a woman is just represented by a pair of breasts and a vulva, then you
yeah,
think something not quite right here.
yeah,
So yes, and the other thing too is I'm sick of older age sexuality being looked at as a joke. Okay, like as
yeah,
in cringeworthy. It's not cringeworthy.
yeah,
It's having sex when you're older is actually, I think, a lot better than what you have when you're younger, because your head and your heart are into it. It's not just about your body wanting to get that pleasure fix. You've moved
yeah.
into a different state of being with that wisdom of age. And I'm having a really good
That's
sex life.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And so what, You also talk publicly a lot on social media about these difficult topics, which is great, such as intimacy, cancer, like you said, menopause, and depression. So, how much courage does it take to tackle those topics so publicly, and what have you learned through sharing online and hearing your experiences and other experiences in a public space?
Okay, well, when I first went into business, and I'm just moving into my second or third year of trade, things have blurred so much with COVID in the last 12 months. I was very nervous when I first started speaking publicly. I didn't know what sort of response I would receive, but I've been overwhelmed by the positive feedback and people reaching out to me and saying, oh, look, thank God to see another woman, just an ordinary woman. Like, I'm not a Playboy model or a Penthouse magazine girl. I'm in my 50s. I'm overweight. I'm not a professional to be talking so matter-of-factly about these topics. The response has been actually overwhelming. Something I will talk about here, because I've publicly just shared my story about living with herpes as well. And that took a lot of courage to come out with. But I'm not sure if I can drop the F-bomb on your show, Bronte. But I got to the point of saying, sorry, Bracha, if you're listening, I thought, I don't give a fuck what other people think. I want other people to know who were diagnosed with herpes. And like, I've never had a cold sore on my mouth, but I just one day about 7 years ago had this burning feeling and went to my darling doctor, and she said, I'm sorry, Susan, it looks like it's HSV2. And I don't know if you're a Holden fan, but to me HSV is Holden Special Vehicle. And I went, oh, thank fuck it's not a Holden, because I don't like Holdens. So, but you can, sorry, I'm a Ford girl. You can live a life, okay? You can have a life of love and sex living with herpes. And trust me, it knocked me off my pedestal when I first found out. I was devastated, absolutely devastated and crushed. At that time, my life, I had ended a relationship. I was relocating to Brisbane to start a whole new life, and I had these big dreams of moving forward in life, getting back into study, and just rebuilding my life from scratch. And then to be told, oh, you've got herpes, I just lost all of my womanness, my femininity. I thought, who is ever going to want to have sex with me? Who's ever going to want to love me? And in the back of my mind, I just knew that whoever it was that I met and fell in love with would be a magnificent human being. And he is. So, if it happens to you, if you get diagnosed with any STI, it's not the end of the world, okay? It just means that something else is coming for you, and that there's opportunity in that type of diagnosis to reassess your life, get some help, and yes, a magnificent human is on its way to love you.
That's so awesome. I love that you've got the courage to share that so openly, because it does take a lot of courage to talk about these taboo subjects that you're right, that you think, if I've got this, who's ever going to love me again? That's so great that you can share it. And I love that people, of course, you're getting such a good reaction online because you are so relatable and you are tackling the tricky subjects that people want to talk about, but they're a bit too scared to talk about because it is such a taboo thing, and they don't want to be the first person to put their hand up and say, oh, yeah, that's me. So I'm glad that you're that brave person taking that first step and putting your hand up, saying, that's me, who else can relate? That's so important. So you say a big turning point in your life was when you left your husband because you were feeling dead inside, and you weighed 165 kgs, so that you weren't feeling confident about that either. So how did you change your life at that point? How did your life turn around?
Sure. It was quite a journey, and I have to acknowledge that my ex-husband recently passed away, which is very sad.
Sorry.
We had a child together, so I'll honour his memory by not going into too much.
Yeah.
The change, like, our marriage wasn't terrible, but I knew I was dying in that marriage. And my good friend reached out to me. She sent me a card to say, I'm so worried that you're going to die an early death. And I realised that my weight was a representation of my sadness in that marriage. I didn't feel loved or respected for many reasons. Like, I was safe physically and emotionally as well. There was nothing like violence or anything. It was just two people with very, very different interests and living separate lives, basically. So I did put myself on a bit of a journey while I was in the marriage. I went and learnt Italian. I can't speak Italian now, though. I haven't practiced. But it just put a spark in my mind, in my belly, to get out there and do something different. I started to walk and eat healthy. When you're 165 kilos, and I'm not that now, but I know I've put a lot of weight back on. But when you're 165 kilos, it's very, very difficult to walk. And I'm really proud of that achievement. It just started with around the block where I lived. It took me 15 minutes. And I just built on top of that. By the end, I was doing a 45-minute walk every day, going to the pool for a swim, going to the gym 3 times a week. And when I entered the marriage, I lost 40 kilos in that first year after my marriage. I was just so focused on fixing my life and starting uni as well. I had never been to university. So I enrolled in business, changed to psychology, did psychology for just over a year, and then moved on to social work. So, but initially, Bronte, I have to say, I am a shy person. In my marriage, I could never speak up. Okay, I couldn't speak up at work. I couldn't speak up in the marriage, and tended to avoid conflict or avoid anything where I had to disagree. And to change that, I actually started practicing giving compliments to people at the checkout. So if somebody gave me good service, I would speak up, because that was hard for me to speak up. But to say to someone, look, I really appreciated your smile. I've had a crappy day, and the way you smiled at me when I came up with the checkout made me feel good. And what I saw was people lifting, like your smile then. You'd get this teenage kid just lift because you'd complimented them. And so I practiced doing that because I had to get over that hurdle of speaking up. And then I got on to asking. It's hard to ask for something that you want. And the old saying, if you don't ask, you don't receive. So I remember at the checkout, actually I've just written an article about this. My adrenaline was pumping, my heart was pumping. The checkouts were crazy, 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 and people queued up everywhere. They needed to open more checkouts. And I thought, why am I going to waste my time? So I actually went up and asked, look, could you please open up some more checkouts? And they did. And the woman behind me thanked me for speaking up. So I just practiced speaking up. And that was the beginning of gaining my confidence. It really was. And now, and I'd recommend everybody needs to develop this ability. Don't give a fuck about what strangers have to say or think. It doesn't matter. I was really, really scared about going onto social media and speaking about, living with herpes, being overweight, talking about sex, all of these things. And then I really thought about it. Well, what does it matter if someone trolls me? I feel sorry for them. I really feel sorry and compassion for someone who's a troll. They must have such a terrible life that they feel the need to try and make somebody else feel terrible. So, the only people I care about are my family and the people in my inner circle. They're the people who matter. Their opinions matter to me, but not a stranger's opinion.
Yeah.
So I feel
That's
like I've
such a good
waffled
way
on.
to look at it.
Did I answer your question?
That's totally fine. That's such a good way to look at things that, you feel sorry. I do the same. I look at them like, well, they must have so much going on in their life to want to take that energy out on someone else. And that's a good way to look at it. And I love what you said about just taking those small steps to build your confidence. That's something that everyone can work on. Just one little thing, just pay one little compliment or ask one little thing and build on it from there. That's so great. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Bring Bracha back on now, and we shall talk some more about confidence. So first question, I'll ask Bracha first and then I'll ask you, Susan. So Bracha, what does confidence mean to you?
It's belief in your capabilities. And I just want to say that I loved listening to you, Susan. It was so great. So great. This is such a fascinating connection. I love that you. First, I was wondering, why do you have this format of two people and then we come together at the end? And now that I've experienced it, I get it. And this is like such an awesome experience. So thank you. Yes. Yeah. So belief in your capabilities, and that's it. Like of course, I recognize what I feel is that we're all connected to the same source. So we don't have to feel like it's on our shoulders, our capabilities. We're all connected to like infinite wisdom, infinite goodness, infinite energy. So, and we each have unique capabilities. We're each here for a reason. So that's it. We're nothing to worry about. We all are blessed. If we're alive, then we're here for a reason. We have a mission, a purpose for being here.
Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it. And you're right. I like this format is to show contrast, compare that, confidence can be built in so many different ways and to show different stories at the same time. So you can get a feel that, different walks of life can all have the same similar meaning. So Susan, what does confidence mean to you?
Gee, that's actually for me a bit hard to say, but for me to have confidence means that I can get my message across. Okay, it means I can stand in my light and shine. And I love, Bracha, I love listening to you talking about how hungry our souls are. Okay, and I wish I'd had those messages from your books when I was a child. It took me a long time to find those things that you talked about. So confidence is, being able to back yourself as well, and not hide, and you take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. So but I keep getting asked all the time by other women particularly, how are you so confident? I mean, if you put me on stage, I'll talk. I don't know. I guess I've got so much to say and so many stupid stories about my stuff ups to share. And it really comes back to not giving an F what other people think.
Yeah. And that's so true about you need confidence to share your message, because if you don't have confidence, then you will just end up being the world's best kept secret and no one will know about you. So
exactly.
It's so true.
Sorry, can I just say something to Bracha?
Yeah.
When you were speaking, you talked about people have children's books in them for years and they never get it out. It's funny because I have a book in me as well, and I heard a quote yesterday. Actually, I read a quote yesterday. You would know this author, Thomas Keneally, who wrote Schindler's List.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. His quote, "Don't get it right, just write."
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, I'm taking that on board big time. So Yeah, so sorry, I'll throw back to you, Bronte.
No, exactly right. And I always encourage people to play. Don't work at the writing. Play. That's how your spirit soars. That's how your imagination flows. Just play at it. Just enjoy, have a good time, and see where the writing takes you. Don't take it too seriously. Yes.
Yeah. That's so true. That's such a good way. And often when you hear authors, people that do write bigger novels, when they talk about their book, often they'll say, they started with chapter 8, or, they swap chapter 4 and 5 around. Like, once you get into that flow, often they find that the structure they initially set out, they did play around. What I'm trying to say, that you don't have to follow a set structure, that it can all work out once you get into the flow, which is great. And speaking of that, Bracha, do you have any favorite books or podcasts that you like to read or listen to, apart from your own, of course, that bring you inspiration?
Gosh, I thought I could say my own. Okay, no, so
you can say your own. I mean, obviously your own.
Okay, great. No, I mean, I really do feel strongly. I guess that's confidence about what I'm doing, because it's kind of unique in the world, and I do wish there was more of that. Speak to a child's soul. As a child, Dr. Seuss said, a child can understand anything that's written if the writer takes care to write it as clearly and simply as possible. That's it. So you can do it. Anybody could do that. So just write it as a child can understand the deepest ideas in the world, as long as you express it clearly. And podcasts, I am just loving podcasts. I love because it gives everybody a voice. All different people, used to just only watch a TV show, and now everybody can do their own show and just present out into the world. And I love that we're on different continents and we can all reach each other. This is something awesome that's happening. Just wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. That's so true. And do you have a favorite person to follow? You mentioned Wayne Dyer earlier. Do you love following him, or is there anyone else that inspires you?
Yeah, and Ram Dass also was one of my favorites. He was at Harvard too, right before me. But of course, I mean, I follow Rabbi Weinberg is who taught me about the 5 levels of the pleasure ladder. He's no longer alive, but he has a book about the pleasure ladder, which I think is fascinating because it's not based on like off the top of anybody's head. It's based on ancient wisdom, and the 5 levels of pleasure correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. So it's universal what brings us lasting pleasure in life. Yeah.
And what about you, Susan? Do you have any favorite books or podcasts that you like to read or listen to?
I do actually. I'll just do a gratuitous plug for my own podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the Maven's Private Diaries. So it's only very little and it's a work in progress, and I have an episode launch when I have an episode ready to go. So I should actually do it on a weekly basis, but life just is too busy, and I'm not a business person who allows business to dictate my time and life. There's been a lot happening in my family over the last 18 months, and that's been my priority, to be honest with you. So, so podcasts, there's 2 in Australia that I follow. One is called She's the Boss by Jules.
I've interviewed her.
There you go, Bronte.
Jules, yeah. It was last week. I interviewed her last week.
There you go. Small world. So I've known Jules for a couple of years now. She taught me how to do PR, and I'm in her women's group. So maybe you should come and join us. We have a a Friday lunch. Bracha, you too. You should.
Yes, she told me about that.
I think
Yeah.
Jules would love to interview you, Bracha. She interviews women all over the world, and that's what I really enjoy about listening to her podcast. She's interviewing female CEOs and authors, and they're always incredibly enjoyable to listen to. They're not a burden to listen to. Sometimes I get stuck on listening to things that I just think, it's boring. I'll move on. So She's the Boss by Jules Brooke, and the other one by Sandy Larries is The Good Girl Confessional.
Yeah.
And Sandy, on the basis of her podcast, has now developed a magazine called Women Beyond 40 here in Australia, which is going global. She's got subscribers now all over the world, which is wonderful. So, look, I'd like your listeners, anyone watching this, to know, get your hands on a book called Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. That changed my outlook on how to speak up, how to structure my conversations. If I'm going to have a difficult conversations, how to approach it. And she's a woman who's worked with CEOs of thousands and thousands of businesses, and has a way of presenting this information. And I think it comes back, Bracha, to what you were saying about children can understand if you write simply. I think adults are the same. Okay. It was just the easiest book to read, and she uses case studies in there that she's worked with, and look, it just boosted my confidence in speaking to people when I needed to have a difficult conversation, both at work and at home. So Fierce Conversations, definitely worth following. And Bracha, when you mentioned Wayne Dyer's name, I had goosebumps because I don't know who Wayne Dyer is, except this is the second time in about the space of 2 weeks that his name has come up in conversations for me. So I take that as a sign I need to go and explore his work. And that's people who are watching, if you get the same name popping up over and over in conversation, hello, that's the universe giving you a sign. Go and check it out. There's obviously information for you to learn. And someone I follow, I don't really have one particular person I follow. I just cherry pick, like take a little bit of goodness there, a little bit of goodness there. I mean, you can't go past Brené Brown. She's the master of getting over shame. And Elizabeth, who's the author? Elizabeth Gilbert. Eat, Pray, Love, and commitments. And,
and I like what you said about taking it as a sign when you hear the same name pop up, because I do follow him anyway, but I was sent to Wayne Dyer YouTube this morning before the show that I watched. It's just a little 5-minute clip. So there's another. I was like, talking about so much, I better go check out some more of his stuff. You're so right that there's signs all around what we need to go check out. So, Bracha, how do you help people, whether it be the parents or the children, how do you help them build their confidence?
I guess not focusing on yourself. Like, let's say you're going to go for an interview or you're going to speak on a podcast, whatever. You just focus on, like, you start to feel self-conscious and you don't feel confident if you focus on yourself. If you focus on what do I have to give? How can I help the world? What can I offer? Like, if you go to a job interview, there's some reason why I'm meant to connect with this person. I have something to give to this person that's beneficial. Even if the job doesn't happen, just at this interview, we all, when we meet each other, we're extracting divine sparks from each other. That's what we're doing here. So basically, it's all, there's nothing to that it's just enjoy that exchange, enjoy that. And again, to me, gratitude is the basis for everything. So if you focus on gratitude, you don't worry about having confidence. You're just being grateful. Yeah.
So great. And same to you, Susan. How do you help people build their confidence?
I guess by leading an example and showing people that you can change. Like, when I was 165 kilos, I've shown people those photographs. You wouldn't recognize me. And if you Google me, you'll see I was in the Daily Mail and I was in That's Life magazine here in Australia. You would not recognize me as the same woman.
Yeah.
So being the example of the change and the proof of change. And Bracha, you hit the nail on the head about gratitude. If you live your life without gratitude, you'll be fractured. Gratitude does bring it all together, okay? And that's the basis of allowing to love yourself and to love others.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, Bracha, where can people find you and connect with you?
The easiest way is Amazon, because my Amazon author page has there's 41 books now, and and then my contact information is there, everything. Yeah.
Great. Easy. And what about you, Susan?
Well, they can contact me via the website, which is thespicyboudoir.com, or find me on Instagram as @thespicyboudoir, and Facebook is also @thespicyboudoir.
I just love that name, the Spicy Boudoir. That's so intriguing. It invites you in.
So do I. And it was a big turning point when my girlfriend said, "Oh, this business is for sale." And I said, "No, I could do something better." That name just poof into my head straight away.
Love it.
And it was there for about 2 days. I thought, rightio, I have to go and see. All the .com was available. All the social medias were available. And the business name was available here in Australia. So I thought, I'm taking it. And I love it. The Spicy Boudoir. And my logo, the name, but the logo on it is a ginkgo leaf. And a ginkgo represents resilience and longevity. And if you want to build your resilience and longevity, tap into your sexual energy, because it's a force to be reckoned with. It's, I guess, the part of the essence of your spirit. Bracha, would you agree?
Yes, it's one of the pleasures given to us. Intimacy is one of the natural pleasures, and it's meant to uplift our bodies and our souls, right?
That's brilliant. So before we go, have you got any final words or any best advice that you've been given, or favorite quotes that you live by that you want to share with the audience, Bracha?
Okay, let's see. This is one from a favorite rabbi. If one person is affected by your words, that's a success. And if that one person is you, that's a miracle. So if you could change from your own words, I mean, when I do these podcasts, it uplifts my soul. It gets my soul to shine. If nobody else's, I mean, it reinforces to me the most important concepts that I want to live with. So that's, if nothing else, that miracle is happening. So that's good.
That's so true. That's how I like to view this. That if no one watches, we've had viewers on, but if no one else watches, at least my week, I'm starting with high energy every week after doing these shows. I'm like, my Monday morning, I'm ready to go, because you guys just lift my spirit and my soul through these interviews each and every week. So brilliant way to look at it. And same to you, Susan. Have you got any best advice or quotes to live by?
Yeah, actually, I found a quote while I was married. This quote has carried me for the last 15 years. Whether it's true or not, because like the internet has, how could you know that Vincent van Gogh actually said these words?
Yeah.
So what would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything? That really hit me big time. So the other one was a life lived in fear is a life half lived. Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's a Mark Twain quote, which I couldn't get it straight away, but if you would allow me to Google it, Bronte, and I should have had this up on screen.
That's right. We can put it in the comments if you
Sure.
come back to me with it.
Okay, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by all the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbour, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. And that's what I've been
That's
doing.
brilliant.
I've been sailing for the last 15, 20 years now.
I love it. It's so powerful. You're so right that we're always going to hold on to the things that the things we do, no matter how they go, are always gonna, be more important than the things that we didn't do. We're just gonna end up regretting all those things we never tried.
Right.
So
That's
powerful.
right.
Thank you both so much for joining me today. And Bracha, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. And Susan, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
I will.
Love that we get to work with different time zones. And thank you so much for joining in. And thank you to everyone who watched. And I'll see you all next week.
Thanks.
See
Thanks
you
for
later.
having us. Bye.
Thank you.